Hi, my name is Carrie, and welcome to Infomedia's presentation of What Should My Blog Say? Today we're going to be learning to write blogs that suit your business, as you can see from the title. We're also going to be talking about who should write your blog, where you should post your blog on social media, and how you should post your blog on social media. Just a lot of things surrounding the topic of blogging. So hopefully after today, you can either get started on your blog or probably more likely you've already started on it and are kind of frustrated about it. So hopefully you'll leave not frustrated and with a plan to keep going. So thanks for being with me today. I'm a little not rusty. What do you call it when you're new at this webinar software? So bear with me a little bit. So let's see while I learn how to change a slide. Okay, we're going to shrink me a little bit. Okay, so who am I? I am Carrie, as I said. My name's Carrie Rollwagon. I'm Communications Director here at Infomedia. So as Communications Director, I do a lot of things. One of them is running our blog, and that means writing for our blog as well. I've also done a lot of blogging personally and for different corporations and companies and businesses. I used to own Church Street Coffee and Books, which is a coffee shop and bookstore. So I did a blog for us, and I've done blogs for like the Southern Living Group and a lot of different companies. So today I thought what we do is sort of talk about some of the questions and comments that I get a lot from clients who are frustrated and sort of answer those and try to go from there. Now, if you want to take notes today, that's wonderful. If you don't feel like taking notes, but you want the slides, they're available on SlideShare. So just go to slideshare.net/Carrie Rollwagon. My last name's a little weird, so notice it's an E-N. And you can find them there. So sorry, my throat's a little parched, so I will probably be taking some frequent coffee breaks. So bear with me again. All right, I'm more of a writer than a speaker, so let's start talking about writing, and maybe I will start speaking better. Okay, so question one, I hate blogging. The first thing I would say to that is it's really not a question, but I understand. So put in question form. I think what people are really trying to say when they say this is, why do I even need to blog? Which is really a great question. I'm going to bump this up a little. No, that doesn't work. Now you can't see the screen. Okay, we'll go with postage stamp, Carrie. Okay, so why do I need to blog? I see this, like there are some companies that you probably already know if you like to blog or if it's something that lends itself to blogging. Like if you have your company is putting out news every day, or I don't know, if you there are certain companies that you might know that. But say you have a business like a lawn care business, or maybe you have a coffee shop and you're like, well, what am I even going to say every day? What's the point of this? And some people with blogging feel like they keep hearing that they should blog, but they don't know why. So let's talk about why. The first is to establish yourself as an expert. So this can be very helpful if you're either starting a company or rebranding a company, or if you are a freelancer or you're a consultant. The point of this is to say people come to your website kind of cold maybe, or they haven't been to your business before, and you want them to know that you know what you're doing. So for example, for Church Street, the coffee shop, when we started that was the reason that we started our blog, because we sold books and people needed to trust us. We were relatively young, the guy started the business with and we needed the people in the community to trust that we actually knew what we were talking about. So that's why I started the blog, so that consistently they could see I actually had worked in publishing. I'd been a reader and an editor for a long time, and I did know what I was talking about. So that helps establish that pattern. And that can do the same thing for you, whether or not you're a new company, or maybe you have a new division that you want to promote, Maybe you had a little bit of a rough patch with your company or a certain division. Blogging can help you to kind of show people that you know what you're doing and get you out of that. Another thing it's really great for is customer loyalty, retaining customers, and upselling. So what this means is, maybe somebody comes into your brick and mortar store and buys a tchotchke, say buys a book from you, and that they have a great experience. Well, eventually that customer, chances are at some point they'll probably interact with you online. Maybe they get an email from you, or maybe they see in your store that you have a blog, or just follow you on Facebook and you post it on Facebook. Well, they may have only interacted with you in a brick and mortar sense, or maybe they just ordered from you online once, but they read the blog and suddenly they have access to different things that product can do that they bought. They learn about new products. They also get kind of a voice and a personality from that. And so that's something that they can really connect to. That's what people like. I mean, you don't want to just say, I bought this computer. You want to feel like, I bought this computer and I'm connected to this company and here's why. We share similar values. If you can connect in that way with your customers, you'll make them so much more loyal. So a blog can really do that. A blog is also really good for upselling. I mean, maybe you say, you bought this computer, but then you have a blog about it and it has all these cool accessories or something. Or different things that make the product better. Or if you're selling a service, like maybe they bought a base level service from you, but you can blog about, did you buy this service? Then this is a great follow-up to that. A blog is a really good way to upsell. So those are things blogs can do really well. Now, something a blog can't do really well, in my opinion, is bring in a ton of new customers just off the bat. I think a lot of people come in and when they try to sell you on a blog and say you have to have a blog, it's like you're going to have all this new traffic from everywhere. That's possible, but that's a rarity. A blog, in my opinion, is more of a long game. It's more dealing with the customers you already have. Again, like retaining customers, upselling. It can be really important. It can be a really great driver for your business, and it can have really good ROI. But if you're looking for that one thing that's going to go out there and just wow everybody and bring in like a flood of traffic, I don't think that's a fair expectation to place on your blog. They're better at the other things we talked about. So another thing blogs are really good at is getting the attention of Google. So let's take a moment to recognize Google. Okay. Trying to make it less awkward that I'm taking breaks. Okay. So, all right. So when you have a business, you probably want your business to come up either at the top or near the top of a Google search. So when people are looking for, web companies in Birmingham, Alabama, we want Infomedia to come up near the top of that search, really at the top of that search. So how do you do that? Well, there are lots of different ways, but essentially what you're wanting to do is talk to Google and to any other search engine like Bing, Yahoo, etc. But we're just going to use Google because that's the biggest one and it's easier to have one we're talking to. So, and the same things really work for all of them. So how do you get the attention of Google? Google likes to have lots of information about your business and your website. The more information you can give them that's good information and it's fresh information and relevant to what you do, the better. Now, when you build your website, you'll definitely want to do that. You want to put really relevant content on your website, for sure. And that website is really good, and Google likes it because it has authority because it's been there for a while. But another good way to talk to Google is to constantly be kind of feeding it information. So then it sees it's fresh, it's new. Google knows you're active, you're in business, you're still blogging. That means you didn't go out of business 5 years ago and somehow your web page is still up. That tells Google like they're still around, they're still doing this. This is a really good thing. One way you can do that even better, like the way to the way to talk to Google is to talk again about your product, service, business, where you're located, etc. The way to do this even better is to use search engine optimization, which is what we say when we say SEO, and keywords. Now, when you're coming up with those keywords, you can definitely make a list on your own of just common sense what you think you should be saying. I would recommend hiring somebody to generate those keywords because they can really test them for you and make sure they're really powerful. Okay, so again, is a blog good for retaining customers? Absolutely. Is it good for customer loyalty? Absolutely. Upselling? Yes. Bringing in new customers? Yeah, maybe. You might find a way to do it, but if that's your primary goal, you need to look at least some additional strategies. Okay, my computer does not want to recognize me. All right, now, okay, so I mentioned SEO and keywords. How do you use these terms in your blog? So again, Google likes to know what you're about. It likes to see that fresh new content. And it likes when people visit your website and stay for a while. So Google wants to bring websites to the top of their search results that customers, or Google's customers, so people searching Google, are really going to like. They want them to be very relevant. So another thing that tells Google that you're good and relevant is when other people stay at your website for a while. So if somebody goes to your website and leaves immediately, it's kind of a signal to Google that maybe the content wasn't that great. They didn't find what they were looking for. But if they stay for 2 to 5 minutes, that tells Google, hey, this person found something relevant here. There's something good about this blog or about this website. Now, a blog can do that because somebody is wanting to read through that blog and they're going to stay for just a little bit, and that gives Google that good signal that you're looking for. Okay, so say that you have a list of keywords that you're going to use for search engine optimization. Maybe you just made a list of common sense keywords. So we're in Birmingham, so those would be, and we're a web development company, so those would be things like web design, web development, Birmingham, Alabama. Maybe you just did the common sense thing. Or maybe you said, I want to make sure, I'm going to really try to work these words into my content. So I want to make sure those words are really the very best ones. Then you would hire someone like maybe Infomedia to generate those words for you. What we do is we start with that common sense too. We ask you, what do you think? And then we actually test those words to see what are people actually Googling, what words are they actually typing in, and we test that against how much competition is there for those words, so that we give you a list of not only which words you should be using, but also which words you're likely to win a battle for. So for example, when I had a bookstore, maybe I would love to be found if people Googled, buy books. Well, there's a little company called Amazon that's always going to win that fight. So instead, I might optimize for something like our, gluten-free pastries, or I might optimize for books in Birmingham, Alabama. Those are fights I probably can win, if that makes sense. So whichever direction you go, how do you use those words once you have a list of those words? Okay. In your blog, there are places, what I mean by this is there are places that Google pays more attention to on your blog than others. So here is where they are. And this does change a little bit. Google sort of changes exactly where they're looking all the time, really. But what you want to think is the ways that we are formatting content so that some content seems more important to a human eye, generally speaking, the same is going to be true for Google. So this is what I mean. The blog title. Well, that's pretty important, right? I mean, it's the biggest thing on the page. It's the thing that's telling your clients what your blog is about. Google also finds it important, and they're going to place more weight on your blog title than, say, a sentence that is 2 or 3 paragraphs in. So what you want to do if you have keywords is try to use them in the blog title. Now, I do want to emphasize throughout all of this, you don't want to stuff this with keywords. If we have a blog about building a website in Birmingham, I don't want to make the blog title, website building in Birmingham, Alabama, build a website in Birmingham. That sounds really dumb, for one thing, so it's not going to connect with your customers. But also, Google sees, and not, well, Google doesn't see or think, so why am I gesturing? But Google's algorithms realize that you're just trying to trick the system at that point, and then they punish you for that instead. So make sure when you use these keywords, use this as a guide, but you also have to realize it needs to be readable to people. Don't try to stuff it with an unnatural amount of keywords. Okay, so going on. So your blog title, your headlines, and your subheads. So when you have a blog and you're formatting the copy, like let's say you're using WordPress, you have everything set up when you type it in a paragraph style. If you're looking at the dashboard, it's probably like right up in the upper left above where you actually type the words. You can highlight something and drop down and select a different style. Now, if you have subheads in your blog, that's really great. It breaks up content for the reader and it makes it easier to read. It makes it easier to skim, and a lot of people like to skim blogs. But if you choose H2 as the headline, Google pays more attention to those subheads. Okay, your first sentence. Again, your first sentence, you learn this as a writer. The first sentence draws people in. Well, Google knows that too, so you might want to use some of those keywords in the first sentence of your blog. That's going to have more power than, say, the last sentence of your blog. You want to generally try to use the words 2 or 3 times at least in your blog. Again, so that might mean you have it once in the headline, once in the first sentence, and then later on in the subhead. That's enough. Like, you don't need to pack it full, but these are just different ways. Again, change up your phrasing. You can use the exact keyword that you've been tested for, but then you might use it, just change it a little bit. Like, I might say website development once and then site development another time. So then I'm still getting the power of like continually saying that word, but it doesn't sound so awkward to readers. You can add links to keywords. So instead of saying click here and then highlighting click here, you could say, if you wanted to say click here to order lawn care service, for example, you could say, instead of saying that, you could say order lawn care service here and then highlight all of that. And because lawn care service is what you wanted to optimize for, and that's in your link, that's going to be that's a good choice. You can use the keyword in your URL. So that means it's the website address, the actual address. So for example, with Infomedia, you can go to infomedia.com/blog, but each blog has its own URL. So it would be infomedia.com/blog/website design or something like that. So those 2 words, website design, are going to be good because they're actually in the URL. So when you're creating a blog in WordPress or another content management system, chances are it's going to auto-generate that URL for you if you don't change it. But if you want to change it to something that's better for your keywords, just click it and you can actually just like retype it. Make sure you do that before you launch the blog, because once you launch the blog and link to it from other places, if you change that URL, it's not going to work anymore. So just make sure that's one of the steps you do when you're writing the blog before you publish. You can also use keywords in alt text. So it stands for alternative text, and this is just text that you can put on an image in a blog. So again, if you're in WordPress, just click on your image, click edit. We also have a blog about this on Infomedia. So if you look at infomedia.com/blog, I'm not exactly sure what the URL is, but I believe we talk about alt text. So you can go into the edit field and it says alt text and just change it. Now you don't want to keyword stuff. If I have an image that is not about website design, I'm not going to say website design in the image. But if I have an image that is, like if it's website designers at a computer, and it describes the image and it applies to my keyword, that's when I want to use that. Now, even if you don't have your keywords in the alt text, it's a good best practice to just add the alt text to your images anyway. Even if it's just a picture of the sun rising, you just put the sun is, the sunrise or whatever. In that case, you're not necessarily giving Google keywords about your business, but you are giving them more information, and generally speaking, Google likes to have more information. Okay, another thing you can do is rewrite your meta description with something, with a plugin like Yoast. So let me sort of unpack that. A meta description is, so you know when you're searching Google, you see the name of the web page, and then you see a little description about what that page is. Now again, this will auto-generate if you don't do anything. You don't have to change this. But if you install a plugin like Yoast, which is free, or we use a version that's free, you can actually change that meta description so that you're manipulating which words come up there. Now, you don't need to use keywords and SEO in this because they don't matter to Google. But why does this matter? You want to say something that's very descriptive so that when people see like a long line of Google searches, your meta description is really attractive to people. So you can change that to be very descriptive, very to the point, show people this is exactly what you Googled for, this is what you want to trust. And more people, the more people who visit you, who click on those links from a search page, the better. Now, if you want to install the plugin, if you really are like great with WordPress, of course, like by all means, do it yourself. If you're not, you can call Infomedia and we'll do it for you just to make sure everything's going smoothly when you install that. All right, so how do we come up with topics? Let's take a break and think about it. Okay, break's over. All right, so this is a huge issue for a lot of people who are blogging. You think when you're starting, I'll have tons of things to talk about. My business is so interesting. And then you try to sit down and think about a blog and you're drawing a blank. So if this is happening, don't worry. Here's how you come up with topics. First of all, think about what you have going on. What's going on in your business as far as sales? Are you doing anything? Are you having an anniversary? Does a employee have an anniversary? Anything that you're wanting to promote. I know this seems really basic, but sometimes when we're blogging, we actually forget to talk about those things that we want to promote. So what do you have going on as a business? Then you think about what do you have to teach. The internet really loves things that are funny and things that are informational. So if you have a lot of information to give, I mean, maybe you have a lawn care business, but you have a lot of tips on how to take care of your lawn, how to do a better job so that by the time you come in, you're actually like, you can hit the ground running and do, just whatever it is. You probably have a lot of information about your business, and some of that you can give away for free. Obviously, some is proprietary, some of them, the things you want them to hire you for, but there's probably a whole world around what you do that people would be really interested in. Give them these tips, how-tos, other ways to use your products, all this kind of stuff. People love this. So that's a great idea for your blog. What do you have to share? People love behind-the-scenes kind of coverage. When we had the coffee shop, people would get really excited about looking behind the counter. Well, that's the ugliest part of the shop. We don't put any effort into like making it look nice. It's clean and organized, but ugly. But people just were really fascinated seeing it or seeing in the kitchen. So if you can show them that behind the scenes, definitely do it. If a customer is loving your product, having success, and that customer feels comfortable being blogged about, share it. A big thing I like to emphasize is think about the questions you get all the time. So in all of our jobs, we probably have the questions that we ask. Like we go to a party and people don't understand our jobs or they don't understand our businesses, and you probably get the same question over and over. Like, I'm a book reviewer for Southern Living, and every time I tell somebody that, they're like, do you read all the books? So I'm not going to tell you if I read all the books. You have to read a blog too. I'm just kidding. I read a lot of books. I don't read all the books. But that's an example of something people are wondering about. So whatever it is that, friends and family, if they usually misunderstand something about your business, if you get the same question all the time, just think about what that is. Think about what employees, when you onboard an employee, do they have the same question usually? What things you have to explain? these would be great things to blog about because they're things you know people are already wondering about. It's like you've used the whole world as your focus group. All right, what is your competition blogging? The blog titled, you know, best lawn care service in Birmingham. Don't just title your thing the same thing and blog the same thing. But you can look at your competition, both local and national, and see what are they blogging about that maybe I could take into my business. By the time I make it really perfectly tailored to what I do, it's going to be different. I mean, don't word the title the same. Don't make it look like a ripoff, but you can look at the kinds of things they're covering, and you can use that as a guide for the kinds of things you should cover if you like what they're doing. Look at what you're already producing. A lot of the times in our companies, we have newsletters, pamphlets, onboarding packages, that kind of stuff that have a lot of text and a lot of content that we worked really hard on. Well, you can repackage some of that for the blog. Now, should you say, like, I'm going to take my onboarding package and just put the whole thing on a blog? Absolutely not. But you might have different sections that could be fleshed out a little bit, could give you a starting point. So when you have those topics, how do you organize them? I mean, you can just make a list of topics and blog about them. You can get up in the morning and decide about what to blog about. That's fine. And there have been times that I've done that. It works okay, but usually what happens, especially in a business, is you get really busy and you're just frustrated, and trying to fly by the seat of your pants like that and just figure out what you're blogging about the morning of can be really frustrating. So what I suggest doing is creating a calendar. It doesn't have to be anything serious. It can just be a list, or you can just print out a calendar and just write it. And then you have a plan, and that's better, usually better for you personally, and definitely better if you have a blogging team. So how do you do that? First, you want to determine frequency and choose your posting days. So how often should you be blogging? Well, if I'm going to tell you the very best thing, I would say blog every day, or at least every weekday. However, most of us are not going to do that, and you really don't have to. At Infomedia, we blog twice a week usually, and that gives us a good clip. We can keep up with that. The biggest thing is to do something that you can keep up with. I would say the minimum would be once a month, because when people go to your blog page, you want them to see content that it's at least the same month and year, and that way they know you're still open, you're still doing business, you're still blogging. I would say that's the minimum. If you can do it once a week or twice a week or 3 times a week, that's wonderful. Okay, so figure out what days those are, which days work for you. You can work with analytics a little bit to figure out which days are best. What I would say at first is just to pick the days that work best for your business. And then if in a month or two you want to look at your analytics and experiment a little to see if different days work better, then go for it. But at first, you want to establish a baseline anyway. I would just pick the days that work for you. At Infomedia, we do Tuesday and Thursday, if that helps. Okay, and add the important company dates and information. Again, this is why it's really good to plan, because like we said before, you want to share that sale that you're having, but if you don't have a calendar, you might not think about it. You might do the blog the day before the sale, which probably isn't going to help you that much. It probably is going to be better to back it up a couple of weeks and start promoting that, start talking about things related to that. So this helps you to do that. You can say, oh, the sale is on the 20th. So around the 10th, we want to start like running blogs to promote it. All right. Also, you can just search around for holidays, National Donut Day, whatever, and real holidays, July 4th, etc. Now, you don't have to blog about every single one of these, and not every business has to blog about every single one of these. But if it relates to your business, or you can find a way to do it, that's a reason to blog about it. I would schedule content due at least a week ahead of time. If you have a blogging team like we do at Infomedia, I like to leave a lot of wiggle room so that if they need to push the blog because they have another project, they still can do that, and it's not really messing us up. That allows me to be really, kind, and be like, oh, no big deal, just get it in 2 days later, and then we're still not behind. And it still gives me time to edit it, pull a picture, that kind of thing. So I think it's a great idea to schedule, plan out your calendar. But if you're like, you know what, we have this like generic blog planned for today, but I have this great blog plan, like I have this great blog idea, or something came up in the news that would be a fantastic blog. We'll just bump what you had until later and blog about the thing that is newsworthy that day. You can still do that. But the calendar just gives you an idea just in case you don't have anything else to talk about. You can find, okay, so I'm going to shrink this little guy so that you can see, you can look at the calendars at infomedia.com/blog. Every month we put up a different calendar. So we put the national holidays, and we put some fun holidays, and then we have some of the things going around on in Birmingham. So if you're in Birmingham, it's fantastic, I think. Even if you're not, it has the national holidays and the silly holidays, and it still might be helpful. We put one up every month on the blog. All right. Okay. And who should write my blog? So some people are probably gonna look at this and say, of course, I'm writing the blog. That's great. You can go get a cup of coffee. But probably some of us are thinking, I'm a little bit shaky on this. I don't know if I can write a blog myself or if I want to. Or maybe you run a business and you know you don't have time to write a blog, but you want to find who can write it. Okay, so let's talk about that. One option, of course, is you. But even if you like to write, I would really think about, are you going to like to write 2 blogs a week forever? Maybe you will, and that's great. Maybe you're an independent contractor or freelancer and you don't have that much of a choice. No problem. You can definitely do that. But if you run a business, you might think about having other people blog. Now, a lot of companies solve this, and to be honest, before I was here, this is the way Infomedia solved it. They just said, everybody write one blog, and then wonderful, we'll have content for the whole month or 2 months. Well, it didn't work out that well, because what you have is some people love writing and do it well and do it quickly. Some people love writing and do it well and spend 3 days on a blog. Now, depending on your company, this is going to vary, but I seriously doubt that you want to pay somebody 3 days of labor to write a blog. So that's an issue. Then you have people who may like writing or may not, but just aren't very good at it. You might have people who they might or might not be good at it, but they just hate it. Like they just, you're probably, if you ask everybody in your company to write a blog, you're probably going to get some people who are just complaining and saying, this isn't my job description. This isn't my job. I hate doing this. I don't want to do homework. So that makes sense. At Infomedia, we have some high-level developers. Well, if they're spending a lot of time writing a blog, first of all, they're going to spend a lot more time than I would spend on it because I'm a writer. I do this every day, and they don't. But also, frankly, the money we put into labor could be better spent with them developing a website, fixing a website, instead of putting up a blog. It's just not, when you look at it that way, it's not that good. It's not very good ROI. So I would not recommend just putting it out to your entire company. I think it's fine to put it out to your entire company and ask them if they want to submit or if people are interested, but I wouldn't force people to do it. It doesn't go over very well. Another thing I see a lot is companies thinking, oh, well, we have an intern. We'll just have an intern write the blogs. Well, this is generally companies who just don't like blogging and think like this is a job nobody wants, so we'll give it to the intern. Well, if your intern is a marketing intern, if they're a communications intern, if they want to do this, I'm not saying that this is never a good idea, but generally, if that's not the specialty, it may not be. Because first of all, an intern is probably inexperienced in their career. That's why they're interning. So you don't necessarily want to put the face of your company, somebody who is going to be able to essentially express like who you are and kind of need to walk a fine line sometimes about what they can and can't say, what they should and shouldn't say. You may not want to give that to somebody who's just starting their career. Again, if it's a marketing intern, that is going to be probably a little different. You're probably a little safer. But also, your intern probably knows the company less well than anybody else. So again, if they specialize in this, fine, but you don't want the voice of your blog to be changing every 4 months. And if you gave it to an intern for a semester, that's what it's going to be doing. And you'd be having to relearn these lessons, reinvent the wheel. It's just generally not the best idea. So all employees, again, we covered this. No. Select employees. Now, I like this. What we do at Infomedia now is I really wanted every department to have a voice on the blog. So I went to those department heads and I said, who do you think would be good? I had an idea of who would be good based on the emails and things that they've written and the way they communicate. So I said, I think this person would do well, but do they have time? And that seemed to have gone really well for us because the department heads are more supportive of their time because I went to them. You know, if they said, no, this person has a huge project, I can't spare them, I just said, okay, and I didn't. But every part of our company now feels like they have a voice because they have somebody on the blog team. Now, another option, if you hate all of these options, if it makes your skin crawl to think of you or any of your employees writing a blog, you can hire a ghost. So that sounds like a little weird, but essentially a ghostwriter will come in and interview you, talk to you, ask you what voice you want on your blog, and write it for you. And then you put your name on it or you put the company's name on it, whichever you prefer. And the ghostwriter, a good ghostwriter will be confidential, so no one will ever know. If you want to go to parties and say, you wrote this, go for it. If you don't, that's also cool. But this is a way that you can hire somebody so you can have that voice, you can have the power of the blog, but you don't have to worry about it. I ghostwrite a lot for Infomedia and for other people. Obviously, I won't tell you because it's confidential, but I enjoy it a lot. And essentially what I do and what we do at Infomedia is I work with the person I'm writing for and see what do they want to do. If they want me to just research the topic and write it all, I can do that. Most of the time what I prefer to do and what we usually land on is I'll call the person or they can email me bullet points. So that way, I like doing interviews, like sitting in the room or calling. That way I can get your voice. I see how you want to express it. And you can kind of tell me what you want to say, but then I just shape it into something that's more like a blog. So it's a really easy process. If you want to do that, just get in touch with Infomedia, and we can set that up for you. Okay, so say you have writers picked out, you have a content calendar, you know what you want to write about, and then you write about it and nobody sees it. You're just waiting for people to read it, and you're just going to keep waiting. Well, we don't want that. So what do? We share it on social media. So this means Twitter, Facebook, etc. You know what social media is. You want to share, and I'm going to give you tips for each specific one, but there are some best practices that just apply to all social media. So first of all, you want to kind of be succinct. You don't want to say an entire paragraph about this because guess what? That's what your blog is. You don't need to spell out everything. Just be pretty short and sweet. Now, there are some ways you can experiment with this, but generally speaking, that's what you're going to want to do. You want to inform and entertain. Again, that's what the internet likes. So, and don't make it so they have to read your blog always to get the information. You can give them a fun tidbit in the little promo, and then they get more information on the blog. But make it so if they're just browsing on Facebook, they get something out of following you, more than just saying, read my blog all the time. And use photos. Photos just work really well on social media. We actually have a blog at infomedia.com/blog about free sources for photos. So it's best to take your own photos if you can. But if you can't, there are free sources that have really good photos. They perform really well on social. So let's talk about specifics. If you want to share on Facebook, first of all, understand that you're not going to get a lot out of organic search. Now, should you share on Facebook? Yeah, I really think you should. But there have been estimates that as a business page on Facebook, for every post you put up, if you don't boost it or promote it or anything like that, if you just put up a post, about 1 in every 100 people who follow you actually see that post. That's not a very high number. So this is something that I run into a lot. People post something on their Facebook page, their business Facebook page, then they get really frustrated because they're like, my friend didn't like it, my followers didn't like it. You know what? They probably didn't see it. Because Facebook really wants us to buy advertising. That means they want us to buy ads. They want us to pay to boost posts. So they don't want people to see it for free. Now, on your personal page, the number's a little bit better, but I would not recommend setting up a business page and just calling it a person and trying to get around that, because Facebook's pretty diligent about cutting those pages out. And if you get found out, and honestly, you probably will, you'll lose your whole page, you lose all your followers, you'll have to start again from scratch. So don't do that. Do create a business page, but just don't expect, if you post something and you don't share it organically and people aren't engaging with it, just know they're not always going to get a lot of traction. Now, how can we get more traction out of that organic search? One thing is, don't make it sound like an ad. So don't use words like sale and free. Don't use things like blog and post if you can help it. Because again, we don't know exactly what Facebook's algorithms are looking at, but they probably are looking at things like that and seeing like if that's a trigger to them that you're not sharing just like some good old content. You're trying to get people to go to your blog and your post, or you're trying to sell something. And they're going to show it to as few people as possible. So does that make sense? All right. So now I said don't create a business page and just mark it as a person. Don't do that. However, if you share something on your business page and then you go into your personal site and share it as, like if I posted something as Infomedia and then shared it as Carrie Rollwagon, that would be good, because then more people are going to see it from the Carrie Rollwagon side. So you don't want to do that on every single post you do, but maybe once a week or once a month, things that you think would be relevant to your friends, do share those. You might get a little more traffic out of them. Okay, Twitter. Now, not everybody needs to be on Twitter. I would say be on Twitter if you feel like your audience is on Twitter. Be on Twitter if you really like to use Twitter. Or if you do something that you really want the attention of a lot of journalists, because a lot of journalists and news organizations, especially that are publishing daily content, are on Twitter. So these are reasons to do it. But you can use a scheduler like Hootsuite. So that's just a free program, and essentially you just type out your tweets and then you can schedule them for later. So if you say, I want to have a Twitter presence, a basic presence, but I don't want to bother with it every day, you don't have to. Now, this is going to get a little tricky with blogging, because you're going to want to put, first of all, I would say if you're scheduling tweets just in general, that's wonderful. If you're scheduling a tweet about a blog, don't schedule it until you have the URL. Does that make sense? So if you've already scheduled your blog to run and you know the URL, by all means schedule the tweet. But if you're just saying, I'm going to schedule this tweet, but I'm going to put the URL in later when I write the blog, guess what? You're probably going to forget. That means the tweet's going to go up. It doesn't have a URL. That looks really bad. So if you're doing the Twitter posts that you're running in general, feel free to schedule to give yourself a presence on Twitter. But the ones that are actually connecting to your blog, I would wait until the blog goes live, or at least you get the URL for the blog to schedule the posts. Okay, I feel like that was confusing. Okay, search for common hashtags that reflect your content. Search for local hashtags. And that can give you an idea of what to tweet about too. If you're saying, I want to be recognized by the people who are using this hashtag, then post about stuff that's relevant and use that hashtag. That can help you be found. Now, Twitter, a picture is great, but you don't have to have a picture. So this is one medium you have a little bit more freedom as far as that goes. Okay, Instagram is a whole different beast. Now, hopefully at some time we will have a better like Instagram for business presentation. But right now, I'm going to talk primarily about a personal Instagram. You don't get punished for creating a personal Instagram for your business at this time. Now, that may change. This is 2017, so early on. So if that changes, just look it up. But right now, you're fine to do that. You do get some benefits from creating a business page, though. One benefit is that you can actually embed links. You can direct people to your website. You can sell things through it. I'm not getting into that today because it's a little more complicated. So again, it's kind of its own session. But a lot of businesses we know still use the personal Instagram. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Instagram for business is actually really wonderful, and you can investigate it. It does take a little more explanation. So if you're interested, look it up. It really might be a good decision for you. And at Infomedia, we do that. We don't sell a lot. We don't try to sell a lot through that page, but we do have a business account. Anyway, okay, so at a basic account, the caption on your picture does not link to outside content. So there's no reason to put like www.infomedia.com/blog/a bunch of numbers or whatever. There's no reason to put that because people can't, if they tap on it, they are not going to go anywhere. So Instagram isn't a great method for getting people to go directly to your blog because it's hard for them to get there. They're going to have to, generally speaking, close the app, open it up somewhere else. In the time they do that, they're going to get a text or something and forget all about you. So I don't think it's a bad idea to post about your blog sometimes on Instagram because then your Instagram followers are more aware that you do have a blog, and eventually I think they will go to the blog. But don't expect it to be a direct thing. Like, they're not going to click directly from there. Now, you can post about your blog and say the link is in your profile, because when you set up a profile, and that's the part, it'll show up at the top of your feed, that link is live, so people can click out to that. So when I talk about a blog, I don't even put the link in the caption. I just put in the caption, visit the blog, the link's in the profile. So that's how I do that. Again, you're more building background than actually providing them a link. Put Snapchat in here because people ask about it, but unless you pay for a business account and really get into that, and that, in my opinion, is pretty tricky, you can talk about your blog on Snapchat, that's totally fine, but you don't have live links, it's really not the format for it, so I wouldn't really recommend it. Okay, so that has been What Do I Blog About? I hope it's helpful to you. Again, at the Infomedia blog, we really try to put a lot of good content. We write about blogging quite a bit. So if you're interested, we put free stuff out there all the time. So I really hope that you'll look at that. If you like what you learned, we would love for you to leave us a Google Plus review. That really helps us out. And again, you can always find us on Twitter, Facebook, etc., pretty much anywhere as @infomedia.com. Spell out the .com. It's at the bottom of your slides. So if you have any comments, questions, whatever, you can ask us there. And you can hashtag #LearnInfomedia if you're like, oh, I want to take a selfie of, me and my coffee and my webinar. That would be cool too. So please share this with anybody that you think it's relevant to. We would love to have this content out there. So thank you so much for joining me. Again, if you want to find the slides, those are at slideshare.net/carryrollwagon. All right, and thank you so much for joining us. I am going to try to figure out how to turn the video off. All right. And okay, here we go. Again, thanks for being patient with me. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you on the next webinar.